eastern skies thundered with the clash of swords, and the horizons of the kingdoms of Chu and Wu were obscured by the dust of charging horses, as fires of discord, leaving nothing in their wake, blazed fiercely among the people. From amidst the smoke of battle and the throng of death, a man emerged. He was not like other men. Instead, he was the very mind of war, the tongue of stratagem, and the key to victory. This was Sun Wu, who would later be known through the ages as Sun Tzu, the sage who, with his own hand, penned a treatise that, if weighed against gold, would surely outweigh it, and, if read with true insight, would render vast armies obsolete. It is said that this man approached the great king of Wu, bearing with him 13 chapters. These were not volumes of poetry or tales for evening gatherings, but rather the very laws of combat and the immutable rules of engagement. When he stood before the king, the monarch, intrigued by the tales of his wisdom, spoke, "O sage, I have read your treatise and marveled at its contents. Can you then offer us proof of the veracity of your writings and even discipline these women from my palace for me?" Sun Tzu replied with unwavering resolve, "Indeed, my lord, for knowledge is not confined by gender, and resolute discipline stops at no door." Among the many tales that illustrate Sun Tzu's ruthless genius, one particular incident stands out. He commanded that 180 beautiful palace women be brought forth and divided into 2 companies. Each division was then placed under the command of one of the king's most cherished concubines. Sun Tzu then began to instruct them how to grasp their spears, how to turn right and left in precise time with the drumbeats. But when he issued his first command, the women erupted in laughter and ridicule. Unfazed, Sun Tzu did not rush to anger. Instead, he spoke with the calm wisdom of a true master. If commands are not clear, the fault lies with the general. He then reiterated his instructions, explaining them with meticulous detail. He commanded them once more, but again they dissolved into laughter and playful amusement. At this, Sun Tzu's composure shattered. His voice, now sharp as a blade, cut through the air. Now that the commands are clear and have not been obeyed, the fault lies with the officers. He then ordered the immediate beheading of the 2 concubines leading the divisions. The king, witnessing this, trembled. He cried out, pleading for the lives of his beloved women. But Sun Tzu answered him with a statement that would forever become a cornerstone of military doctrine. When a general is in the field of war, he does not accept every command from the sovereign. The 2 concubines were executed without hesitation. Others of lesser rank were appointed in their stead. And from that moment, the palace women marched in training as if they were valiant, disciplined soldiers. Not a whisper, not a murmur escaped their lips. It is here we truly grasp that this book was not crafted for mere amusement. Rather, it is the profound legacy of a mind that intimately knew death and profoundly understood the essence of order. The art of war is far more than a simple tactical deployment of troops on a field. Instead, it is a profound philosophy that delves into the very nature of humanity, the unpredictable turns of fate, and unearths the hidden wellsprings of weakness and strength within the spirit, long before they manifest in the physical realm. Sun Tzu, a master strategist, forged his profound wisdom in an era when empires crumbled like autumn leaves. His ambition to wield the power of the mind as a shield, safeguarding nations from the folly of ignorance and the reckless abandon of hubris. Historians and scholars of ancient strategies often tell us that this book's enduring significance lies in its revolutionary premise. It transformed war into a teachable art rather than a mere happenstance to be endured. It teaches us that the most profound victory is one secured without the shedding of a single drop of blood, and that the true leader triumphs over their adversary in the theater of the mind, long before any blade is drawn. And truly, the very lines penned by this ancient sage have transcended both time and space. For no shrewd monarch, no triumphant general, or even a shrewd entrepreneur in our modern age
will fail to find in Sun Tzu's timeless words a guiding light, illuminating their path to competition and ultimate triumph.
The reader of this magnificent tome finds themselves gazing into a mirror, reflecting the true nature of human struggle. For deception, timing, self-knowledge, and knowledge of the adversary, these are the cornerstones upon which Sun Tzu built his formidable edifice of wisdom. Among his most enduring maxims, echoed through the ages, "If you know yourself and know your enemy, you need not fear the result of 100 battles." Indeed, this is a timeless gem of wisdom, one that never fades through the passage of ages. For long centuries, this book remained enshrined within the dark chambers of Chinese palaces, its profound wisdom accessible only to the highest echelons of society and the emperors of the East, until at last it emerged into the light, astounding the world with its meticulous structure and profound insights. Even today, its legacy endures, its name spoken with reverence as scholars continue to pen commentaries on its margins. For this work did not merely describe the ebb and flow of battle, it delved deep into the human psyche, exploring the fear and hope, the courage and cowardice that reside within. Here we are reminded of the age-old wisdom: war is deception. But Sun Tzu, he didn't just acknowledge deception, he elevated it to a codified science. And from the very heart of chaos, he forged a disciplined order. It is no surprise, then, to witness even the most eminent minds bowing in reverence before this ancient manuscript. For it is not merely words etched on a page, but a profound philosophy, a way of life for those who seek a genuine foothold in the arenas of glory. Indeed, it is said that he who has not delved into Sun Tzu's The Art of War remains adrift in his endeavors, crippled in his strategies. He knows not from where the blow will fall, nor how to guide his forces towards a decisive victory. It offers profound lessons in patience, in the art of surprise, in seizing fleeting opportunities, and in the subtle dance of adapting with the wind wherever it may turn, all without breaking one's essence or bending one's will. To delve into this book is akin to gazing upon a vast, deep ocean. Its surface may appear calm, yet its depths conceal a formidable, raging power. And the deeper one delves into its pages, the more pearls of wisdom one extracts, wisdom that aids in navigating the ever-changing tides of life. Sun Tzu was not merely a ruthless warrior, but a philosopher who understood war as a last resort. He believed wisdom was the first sword to be drawn against adversity. Crucially, he believed that earth, heaven, the commander, law, and climate were the 5 pillars upon which nations stand. Should even one of these pillars falter, the entire structure would lean, ultimately destined to collapse. This profound insight reveals the breadth of his vision and his grasp of the interconnectedness of all things. For the battlefield is inseparable from politics, and courage cannot exist apart from wisdom. To those who seek to plumb the depths of this ancient wisdom, understand that you now hold a manuscript from which the dust of centuries has been meticulously cleared, designed to resonate with your intellect in an age of uncertainty. It is an invitation to profound reflection on the art of conflict management, whether waged between mighty armies or within the intricate landscapes of the human soul. For what Sun Tzu inscribed with his very hand became an indelible engraving upon the stone of history, a mark that the relentless march of dawn or the quiet fading of dusk can never erase. And so Sun Tzu endures as an icon of human ingenuity and strategic brilliance, his timeless treatise a guiding beacon for those navigating the treacherous paths of stratagem and conquest. As we now prepare to delve into its inaugural chapter, we are not merely opening a book, but a venerable portal to ancient history, to breathe in the fragrant essence of ancient wisdom, a wisdom that the passage of time only renders more luminous and profound. So ponder deeply, and may divine guidance illuminate your path, these very words, for within them lies a profound message for those who truly comprehend,
and an invaluable resource for all who aspire to emerge victorious in the grand theater of life's greatest battles.
His words struck his contemporaries like a bolt of lightning, and that same power still reverberates through the souls of those who followed. For true power lies not in the immensity of bodies, nor in the sheer weight of numbers, but in piercing insight and masterful strategy. This was the very essence Sun Tzu sought to imbue into the spirit of every reader of his scrolls, to arm them with a weapon that would never dull, a shield that could never be pierced, and a judgment that could never be swayed. Indeed, profound is the wisdom that taught humanity what it knew not, bestowing adornment upon the mind and salvation within its sagacity. Tales of this tome's immense power continue to ripple through history, so much so that it is said the emperors of China themselves would not make a single decision without first consulting the wisdom Sun Tzu prescribed within its 13 chapters. And this was not merely reverence, but because they discovered within its pages absolute veracity of vision, masterful expertise, and an unwavering grasp of command. So heed the counsel of one who has truly weathered the ages, and delve into this book with the meticulous gaze of a scholar, not the fleeting glance of a passerby. For within its intricate folds, you may well discover insights that will alter the very trajectory of your life, unlocking horizons of understanding you never before imagined. For wisdom is the lost treasure of the discerning mind. Wherever it is found, it is most rightfully claimed. And the art of war stands as a veritable wellspring of wisdom, a boundless mine of sagacity, whose brilliance never fades with repeated study, and whose depth never tires the seeker, no matter the passage of time.
When it is firmly etched in the mind that war dictates the very survival or annihilation of a nation, that it is the ultimate scale upon which a state's glory either ascends or plunges into the abyss of disgrace, then it becomes imperative for any leader of sound judgment to approach it only after profound contemplation, rigorous thought, and the invocation of unwavering principles that never stray from the path of truth. Understand this: the art of war is not merely the clang of swords or the collision of battle lines. It is a profound science built upon 5 monumental pillars. He who masters these pillars grasps the very reins of victory, but he who neglects them, even with an army vast in number, is destined for nothing but ruin. The first of these pillars is what is known as the way. By this, the wise strategist refers to that invisible bond that unites the populace with their leader, forging a profound connection between the hearts of the soldiers and the will of the sovereign. When the way is true, the people become one with their ruler, a single unified body. They will not fear death in service to his command, nor will they flinch from the depths of terror when the call to arms rings out. It is this absolute harmony, this perfect accord, that compels a people to brave the deepest waters and charge headlong into the face of death without hesitation or fear. Such unity, however, is forged only through pervasive justice and exemplary conduct. Only then will a soldier perceive his commander's victory as his own personal triumph, and his death upon the field of honor as immortality itself.
Next, we turn to the pillar of sky. And what truly is the sky in the lexicon of war? It is the relentless turning of day and night, the unending rotation of seasons, the shifting dominance of bitter cold and searing heat. A truly insightful commander understands when the biting cold can become his ally, a formidable soldier, and when the scorching heat of summer can turn into a weapon, a sword against his foes. It is said that those who dared to campaign in the grip of winter's harshest chill, unprepared, watched as the snows devoured their men, and those who marched their armies through the searing summer heat across barren wastes devoid of water inevitably led them to their doom. Thus, the sky is a destiny that cannot be defied, but it can be understood, navigated, and harnessed. The truly wise commander is he who makes time itself his closest ally, both in advance and in retreat. Moving to the third pillar, the earth. This is the very stage upon which the millstone of fate grinds, where destinies are forged and shattered.
The earth encompasses the vastness or proximity of distances, the unforgiving ruggedness or welcoming ease of paths, the constricting narrowness of passes, and the boundless expanse of open plains. For some terrains offer salvation, while others are nothing short of a killing ground. A commander who ignores the true nature of the terrain is akin to a blind man wandering through a field of arrows. He must possess intimate knowledge of where to establish his camp, where to lay his ambushes, and how to exploit mountain peaks for strategic advantage and elevation, or the depths of valleys for concealment from prying eyes.
The earth itself is an open book, yet only those gifted with profound, penetrating insight can truly read its ancient script. We now turn to the fourth cornerstone, the leader. He is the very pivot of the mill, the head of all endeavor, the central axis around which everything revolves. The sages of old meticulously defined his indispensable qualities, narrowing them down to 5 essential traits: wisdom, integrity, humanity, courage, and firmness. Wisdom, first and foremost, grants him the vision to perceive what remains hidden to others. It allows him to forge ingenious solutions precisely when all other avenues seem closed. Integrity is the bedrock of trust. Through it, his soldiers place unwavering faith in his promises and his warnings, never once doubting the truth of his words. And humanity, this vital trait, cultivates deep compassion for his men. He feels their suffering as his own, inspiring them to pledge their very lives in return, ready to sacrifice all for him.
Courage, on the other hand, is the very spark of action, the unwavering resolve that holds firm amidst the most seismic of upheavals. And then there is sternness, the unyielding force that establishes the scales of justice. Its leniency is never to be presumed, nor is one safe from its formidable might should its command be defied. When these crucial qualities converge within a single leader, his army transforms into an impenetrable, tightly knit edifice. The final indispensable pillar in this foundation is order, a concept encompassing the precise arrangement of ranks, the clear division of authority among officers, the meticulously organized supply routes, and the diligent management of the army's expenditures and provisions. For courage without order holds no true value, and sheer numbers without meticulous planning yield no lasting advantage. Order is in essence the strategic mind orchestrating the movement of every individual. Through it, each soldier understands his precise role in the advance. Through it, vital provisions reach the farthest outposts exactly when needed. And through it, resources are safeguarded from waste and loss. Indeed, history recounts tales of mighty armies not defeated by a lack of prowess, but by the insidious chaos that crept into their very veins, turning their own ranks against each other in devastating self-destruction.
These 5, then, are the bedrock principles of strategic evaluation. For anyone seeking to divine the outcome of a war before its first shot is fired, the path is clear. Weigh the state of the 2 adversaries against these very scales. Indeed, the wisdom of the ancients, passed down through generations, reveals a profound method. To truly discern the truth of any impending conflict, they posed 7 crucial questions. Which of the 2 rulers adheres most steadfastly to the way? Which of the 2 commanders possesses superior capacity and wisdom? To whom belongs the advantage of heaven and earth? On which side is discipline enforced with the most rigorous precision? Which of the 2 armies boasts stronger armament and greater battle-hardened resolve? Which class of soldier is more thoroughly trained and adept? And finally, which of the 2 sides maintains a more equitable system of reward and punishment?
To answer these questions with honesty and detachment is to see the victor and the vanquished laid bare, as if gazing into a crystal-clear mirror. Should you find a leader who scoffs at these fundamental principles, know this: he is steering his people towards an inevitable slaughter, no matter how he adorns their path with false promises and hollow dreams. But he who embraces these tenets, holding them ever before his eyes, is a man whose stride leaves no dust unturned, a force unmatched. He is one whom challenges themselves fear long before any adversary dares to. Indeed, It is recounted that Sun Tzu himself declared, "A true understanding of these 5 elements is no mere intellectual luxury, it is an existential imperative." For war, at its core, is deception, and the essence of deception lies in presenting to your enemy the inverse of your true intentions. Yet you cannot deceive reality itself if your foundational pillars stand hollow. How then can you feign strength to your adversary when you utterly lack order? And how can you mislead him into believing you are near when you fail to grasp the very nature of the terrain? For correct assessment is the very first stride towards triumph. Without it, an army becomes a rudderless vessel adrift in the tumultuous depths of a boundless ocean, relentlessly battered by waves, with no captain skilled enough to read the guiding stars.
Consider this, you who possess true insight, for whoever weighs his affairs with the balance of intellect and these 5 fundamental pillars will be safe from stumbling, and the path to triumph will be clear before him. His memory will endure in the annals of the immortals, unlike those who chased glory with rash abandon, only to harvest disappointment and ignominy. These principles are not mere words to be inscribed, rather they are the very laws of the cosmos governing conflict. He who prevails by them will prevail in reality, and he who falters by them will find no aid apart from God. Let us understand that every movement on the battlefield is the fruit of prior assessment. If the assessment is sound, the execution will succeed. But if the root is flawed, the branch will wither, and all effort will be rendered futile. Having established these fundamental principles, the 5 elements from which no leader can ever deviate, know then, and may God aid you, that the millstone of war turns only on the fuel of wealth. Horses will not charge without the sustenance they are given, and an army in its raw power cannot be controlled or sustained without the judicious management of its expenditures.
Should you summon your people to war, amassing a formidable army of 100,000 warriors, deploying 1,000 swift chariots and another 1,000 heavy leather-armored wagons, then understand that every single day spent on the field of conflict will drain from your coffers 1,000 mithqals of the purest, unblemished gold. These immense sums are consumed by the needs of messengers and envoys, by the constant repair of broken wheels, by the greasing of leather with glues and oils, and by the provisioning of rations for your men and fodder for your beasts. Therefore, if you do not possess such formidable wealth at your command, then raise no banner and pursue no objective.
From the annals of antiquity, a timeless truth is whispered. Slowness on the battlefield is a potent poison for nations, for when war drags on, the soldiers' swords grow dull, their valor diminishes, and their very will collapses. No nation has ever truly prospered from a protracted conflict. Instead, war is like a fire, consuming its own fuel until nothing but ash remains. The astute commander, therefore, is one who understands that victory in war is achieved through speed and decisive action, not by prolonging the days. Even if such speed carries the risk of some oversight, it is far superior to the deliberate slowness that inevitably leads to ruin. For the greater the distance between an army and its homeland, the heavier the burden grew upon the shoulders of the populace. Supply lines were severed, and the transport of provisions across vast, desolate lands became a strangling burden on the state's coffers. Those with profound understanding have often taught us that the truly inspired leader is one who transforms his adversary into a very source of sustenance. He dines on his foe's provisions, and his horses graze freely on enemy pastures. Indeed, they famously asserted that a single measure of supplies, plundered from the enemy's own stores, is worth 20 measures painstakingly transported from your homeland. This stark imbalance arises from the immense toil and struggle endured in transporting goods, the provisions inevitably lost along the journey, and the sustenance required by the transporters themselves simply to survive. Thus, if a leader can successfully wage his war on the very shoulders of his enemy, he has not only elevated his own people and humbled his foe, but he has also safeguarded his treasury from the specter of depletion. Know this stark truth. When the fires of war rage, calamity descends upon the populace from two distinct fronts. The first, the crushing burden of taxes and levies exacted to provision the war machine. The second, the skyrocketing cost of provisions in the markets, a direct consequence of scarcity and the people's forced abandonment of farming and trade for the demands of war. Once the last coins drain from the homes and the granaries yield no more grain, failure then seeps into the very sinews of the state, perhaps inviting the covetous gaze of both neighbor and distant foe. You will see families stripped of 7/10 of their belongings, and the state, in turn, has squandered 6/10 of its revenue, merely attempting to mend the ravages of years of conflict, from fallen horses and shattered armor to broken bows and splintered spears. And from this perspective, the truly insightful leader didn't see battle as a mere act of heroism, but rather as a meticulous calculation of gain and loss. For the ultimate purpose of war is victory, yet victory holds no true value if its cost is the ruin of one's own lands. And if you wish to spur your soldiers to seize enemy provisions, then ensure they receive a share of the spoils, for humanity is inherently driven by the pursuit of advantage. When a warrior understands that their efforts on the battlefield will yield abundant rewards, they will charge with the ferocity of a hungry lion. But beware of injustice when dealing with captives. Instead, honor them and win their hearts so that they may become an asset to you. This is the profound wisdom that allows you to conquer your enemy and, remarkably, to augment your own strength through them. Indeed, it was said in ancient wisdom, "He who knows how to spend knows how to achieve victory." For what modern strategists call logistics was to the ancients the science of sustenance and provisions. It is, in essence, the very leg upon which power stands and moves. It is therefore no surprise to find a great commander spending more nights calculating sacks of wheat than sharpening the blade of his sword. For a sword does not cut if its wielder's hand trembles from hunger, and horses will not neigh or charge if their veins are parched with thirst.
To those who seek glory in battle, heed this truth. War is a ravenous ghoul devouring fortunes before it consumes lives. The public treasury, the Beit al-Mal, stands as the first fortress, more vital than any wall or trench. For whoever masterfully manages their resources, strategically shortens the duration of their conflict, and crucially sustains themselves from the provisions of their adversary, they hold the very keys to a resounding victory. But those who neglect these principles, who succumb to the allure of prolonged conflict and the pride of sheer numbers, without ever accounting for their sustenance and supply lines, their fate is ruin, even if in the initial fervor they believe themselves destined for triumph. The true measure, then, is not in the sheer number of soldiers you command, but in how many you can truly sustain in a foreign land. It is about how you can bring them home, with the state's coffers still full and the hearts of your people content. Thus, it becomes clear to any discerning mind that economy in warfare is not a sign of miserliness, but the very essence of courage and wisdom. For the obstinate leader who squanders their resources to no avail is like one who builds a grand palace of sand upon the shore of a raging sea. The relentless waves will soon erase its very trace, leaving behind only bitter regret and utter defeat. Let these principles then be ever before your eyes. Ponder them with the discerning scale of reason long before you ever draw the blade. For no one has ever failed who first sought the counsel of wisdom and the guidance of meticulous planning.
Given the colossal costs and the crushing burdens that weigh heavily upon the shoulders of nations on the battlefields of war, it became imperative for the astute mind to seek a path of lesser expense, yet with a far greater, more enduring impact. For a true hero is not merely he who quenches his sword in the blood of his foes. Rather, the hero is one who bends wills and conquers minds without ever unsheathing a blade or shedding a single drop of blood.
Indeed, it is said that the very essence of wisdom in this domain lies within a profound principle, that the ultimate objective is to seize an enemy's land, humbled and intact, rather than to lay waste to it, burning its fields and decimating its people. Such destruction is, by many measures, a far lesser achievement. Among the most profound insights attributed to the wise, it is said, to subdue an enemy's entire army is superior to annihilating it, and to capture a battalion or a company intact is far better than to leave them as fodder for the beasts. True victory, therefore, does not lie in waging 100 battles and triumphing in every single one. No, the ultimate triumph is to break the enemy's resolve and might without ever engaging in a noteworthy conflict. Here, the very hierarchy of action ascends, each tier a testament to the brilliance of the underlying strategy. The pinnacle of military sagacity lies in thwarting the enemy's plans while they are still in their infancy. Should a commander prove unable to achieve this, he must then turn to the next echelon, isolating the enemy from their allies. For an individual is diminished alone, but formidable alongside their brethren. When the bonds of alliance are severed, the adversary is weakened, their very foundation crumbling. If even this strategy proves elusive for the warrior, then there is no recourse but to engage their army directly on the battlefield. Yet this is a rank markedly inferior to the former two, for it demands the immense sacrifice of both lives and treasure. But the lowest and most ill-omened of all is the siege of fortified cities. Such a desperate measure is only undertaken by those whose every avenue has been severed, whose vision has been utterly obscured by absolute necessity.
History recounts the inherent perils of siege warfare. The sheer preparation of mobile towers and formidable war machines alone devours 3 agonizing months. An equal span is then lost to filling trenches and meticulously positioning the catapults. Should a commander's patience finally shatter and he hurls his troops against the ramparts, scaling them like ants upon a wall, he seals his own doom and sacrifices 1/3 of his army, all for naught. This, then, is the ultimate tragedy in the art of battle. Thus, the truly shrewd commander is one who conquers fortresses without ever needing to directly assault them, who brings down empires without drawing out the conflict. He preserves his army's strength, maintains his own formidable reputation, and achieves his objectives completely undiminished. This is what is known as victory through comprehensive strategy.
To achieve such strategic mastery, one must first grasp the true measure of strength. If your strength outnumbers your adversaries by a factor of 10, then surround them completely from every direction. Should your forces be 5 times theirs, launch a swift, decisive assault without hesitation. If you possess double their strength, then focus on shattering their cohesion and dispersing their ranks. However, when forces are evenly matched, direct confrontation demands exceptional skill and brilliant tactical ingenuity. But if your numbers dwindle below theirs, then withdrawal and strategic evasion become the very essence of wisdom. For it is sheer folly for a wild ibex to butt heads against an unyielding solid rock. A small army, if it obstinately challenges a formidable, overwhelming force, becomes nothing more than easy prey and snared in the hunter's nets.
Understand this fundamental truth. The leader is the very pillar of the state, its unyielding cornerstone. Should this pillar stand firm and true, the nation thrives with unwavering strength. But if weakness or deviation afflicts it, the very foundations of the state begin to tremble. Consider now 3 critical errors, 3 fatal flaws, which, should a ruler succumb to them, will inevitably lead his army to ruin. The first, to command his army to advance or retreat without true understanding of the prevailing conditions on the battlefield of battle. Such a leader is akin to one who hobbles a horse, then demands it win the race. Secondly, to meddle in military affairs and strategy with the same heavy hand he applies to the civil populace and political machinations. This inevitably breeds confusion and turmoil amongst his own commanders. And thirdly, to unilaterally appoint commanders, lacking any genuine grasp of the subtle arts of deception and maneuver essential for military leadership. This act alone sows the bitter seeds of doubt within the hearts of the soldiers. For when an army descends into disarray, when doubt gnaws at its very soul, rivals will inevitably seize the moment. Chaos will reign supreme, and the ancient wisdom will ring true. Internal disarray invites external defeat.
Among the signs pointing to a commander's triumph, 5 principles stand out, unmistakable to the discerning eye. First, the profound wisdom to discern precisely when to engage in battle and when to strategically hold back. Second, the supreme skill to manage his forces with unyielding effectiveness, whether they are numerous or few. Third, the complete unity of the entire army, from its highest command to its most junior soldier, all sharing a singular heart, purpose, and objective. Fourth, the commander's unwavering readiness, ever vigilant, poised to strike an unprepared adversary. Finally, the commander's absolute independence of judgment, free from the meddling of civilian authorities who grasp nothing of the true nature of war.
And when these qualities converge, wisdom itself articulates a timeless, decisive truth. If you know yourself and you know your enemy, you need not fear the peril of 100 battles. But if you know yourself, yet remain ignorant of your adversary, you will taste both victory and bitter defeat. However, if you know neither yourself nor your enemy, then defeat shall be your constant ally in every single encounter. This, indeed, is the very crucible of intellect by which the true measure of men is taken and the indomitable spirit of heroes is weighed. For knowledge is a weapon that can never be blunted, and profound insight a guiding light that illuminates the darkest depths of strife and confusion.
From ancient times, strategists meticulously deployed scouts and spies, striving to uncover the most intricate details of their adversaries' affairs. For in the crucible of war, information stands as a treasure more precious than pure gold, more invaluable than the rarest pearl. He who begrudges the resources needed to discern his enemy's intentions is a leader forsaken by fortune, betrayed by prudence. For how can one truly command armies if they wander blind through a wilderness without a guide? The quest for victory without direct confrontation demands extraordinary patience, an unyielding resolve, and a mind capable of weighing every detail with atomic precision. When the grand strategy is meticulously perfected and the ingenious stratagem fully takes root, the adversary will inevitably yield, compelled against their will. The desired objective is then secured with minimal exertion, and precious strength remains conserved, reserved for the unpredictable trials of time. This indeed is the pinnacle of ingenuity, the very zenith of strategic mastery in the intricate science of combat.
As the wise one observed, the truly skilled leader, the master of combat tactics and strategic deployment, is one who first ensures his own invulnerability to defeat. Only then does he lie in wait, poised to seize the opportune moment for victory from his adversary. For avoiding defeat is a matter entirely within our grasp, dependent solely on our own preparedness and strategic foresight. The chance to conquer an adversary, however, is a gift, graciously offered by the opponent himself, often when he falters, grows complacent, or makes a critical error. This understanding leads to a profound truth. The astute soldier can indeed master the art of becoming invulnerable, unconquerable. Yet he cannot guarantee victory over his enemy by sheer force alone, unless the enemy himself opens the door through his own folly or miscalculation.
It is recounted by those with deep strategic insight that whoever finds themselves unable to secure victory must resort to fortification and defense. Conversely, whoever senses within themselves an abundance of strength and capability should pursue offense and decisive assault. To fortify and entrench oneself within positions is therefore an indicator of insufficient resources.
Offense, however, stands as the undeniable emblem of overwhelming might and ample reserves. The commander who has perfected the art of defense will vanish into the deepest recesses of the earth, like a hidden secret that no eye can discern. Conversely, the commander who excels in offense descends with the sudden, overwhelming force of one falling from the loftiest heavens. Through such profound strategic understanding, a commander ensures both the preservation of their army and the totality of their triumph.
It has been asserted that merely witnessing victory, once it's already clear to every eye, is not the pinnacle of true skill, nor is the victory cheered by the masses, whose fame travels with riders after a blood-drenched epic, the ultimate expression of wisdom. For just as lifting a delicate strand of fluff is not proof of superhuman strength, and seeing the sun and moon offers no evidence of keen vision, and hearing the deafening crash of thunder is no testament to acute hearing, true victory, then, is that which is secured by the meticulous forethought and prior planning that precedes the event itself.
Legend tells us that the ancient warrior would position himself in a place from which he could not be assailed, then never miss a single moment when the enemy's vulnerability presented itself. For the victorious army is one that enters the battle having already secured triumph in its mind and through its meticulous planning. In stark contrast, the defeated army is one that merely plunges headlong into the depths of war, hoping for victory only after the fact. This profound understanding rests upon 5 essential pillars, without which no sound tactical positioning can exist. First, measurement. Second, estimation. Third, calculation. Fourth, comparison. And fifth, victory. The very ground beneath your feet, the terrain itself, is the principle of measurement. From measurement, we derive estimation, gauging the scope of the field and the distances involved. From estimation, calculation is born, determining troop numbers and resources. From calculation emerges comparison, weighing your strength against that of your adversary. And from comparison, victory itself flows with absolute certainty. The triumphant army, confronting a broken foe, possesses an advantage akin to a colossal weight tipped by the merest fraction, an imbalance so profound the opposition has no hope of standing. The surge of a victorious force mirrors the cataclysmic release of pent-up waters when a mighty dam finally shatters, unleashing a torrent that cascades through a deep canyon from a distant, towering height. It is crucial to grasp this truth. Strategic positioning is never mere immobility. Instead, it is the masterful deployment of inherent strength, the astute management of dormant power. For those with genuine insight into the intricate dance of time and terrain, understand that defense is not an active retreat. Rather, it is the shrewd conservation of energy, a coiled spring of potential, and a cunning ambush for the enemy's resolve. Thus, should you observe an army seeking refuge amidst majestic, towering mountains, or fortifying itself within rugged, uncharted passes, do not be deceived into believing it is powerless, for it may well be consolidating its entire strength, poised for an unstoppable, earth-shattering leap, a decisive strike that obliterates all in its path, leaving utterly nothing behind.
According to some ancient chroniclers, the true art of strategic positioning means standing firm as an unyielding mountain in your resolve, yet moving with the lightness of a dispersed cloud in your agility. When you strike, you must be like a thunderbolt, whose raw power cannot be repelled. And when you defend, you are like the boundless ocean, whose depths can never be fully fathomed. Indeed, the ultimate measure of a leader's mastery lies in their ability to transform perceived weaknesses into hidden wellsprings of strength, all by skillfully manipulating the enemy's gaze. If you can deceive your adversary into believing you are distant when you are in fact close, or that you are vulnerable when you possess immense power, then you have truly seized the reins of strategic positioning. In the enduring wisdom of warfare, it is often recounted that the distance between defeat and victory can be measured in a single stride, a mere footstep. The ground you choose to hold, the very spot where you make your stand, is no mere patch of earth. It is a decision,
one that can dictate the life or demise of nations, sealing their fate in the annals of history. If the very earth itself becomes your ally, if your back is secured by an impregnable stronghold, and your gaze commands a gentle, advantageous slope before you, then you have already seized half the victory, long before a single sword is ever drawn.
From the wisdom of the ancients comes a timeless decree: never provoke an enemy entrenched in a commanding height, nor pursue an adversary who seeks refuge deep within the labyrinthian confines of mountain defiles. To do so is to court only self-destruction. Instead, patiently await the moment he, lulled by a false sense of security, descends to the open plains, or until his supplies are depleted, forcing his hand and compelling his retreat. For true strategic defense is the art of attrition. It is the calculated depletion of an enemy's patience, the slow, deliberate erosion of his will. Then, and only then, when you perceive his spirit flagging, his resolve faltering, shall you shift your position from the steadfastness of defense to the swift, decisive strike of offense, with a lightness and speed utterly beyond his wildest anticipation.
The very art of tactical positioning is built upon remaining formless in the eyes of your adversary. Be like water. It takes the shape of the vessel that contains it and flows through any path that opens before it. Never allow a fixed form to define you, one upon which an enemy might construct their strategy. Instead, transform and adapt, mirroring the contours of the land and the shifting movements of your foe. Should you find them concentrated, bypass them. If they are dispersed, then is your moment to strike. If their position is unyielding, a fortress of defense, do not approach. Instead, patiently draw them out, enticing them to unfamiliar ground, where their knowledge of the paths vanishes. For it is said, victory is born from the womb of steadfastness, while defeat arises from the absence of accurate judgment.
To truly master the art of strategy, one must first gaze upon the consequences of every action long before plunging into the unknown depths. The true leader is he who arranges his forces not merely by will, but by the very dictates of the terrain itself, the winding rivers and the towering hills. Such a commander is unparalleled, a force whose dust none can hope to follow. But to launch an assault without precise positioning is to emulate the fool who batters his head against an unyielding, impenetrable rock. The stone remains unbroken, and he himself will not escape with his head unscathed. A genuine offensive, therefore, must only commence when absolute certainty confirms your adversary's loss of equilibrium, or when a critical vulnerability reveals itself within their formations. At that precise moment, your strike must be swift and devastating, granting the opponent no opportunity to reposition or rally their scattered forces. For true strength here lies not merely in numerical superiority, but in the focused concentration of that very power upon a single vulnerable point within the enemy's lines. And this only after you have first secured your own flanks with a defensive posture so impregnable not even a bird could breach its defenses.
One of the remarkable paradoxes of this art is that defense, when masterfully orchestrated, can become the most formidable offense. Imagine holding your position, unyielding, until your aggressor is utterly spent. Then, as weariness saps their strength, you unleash your counterattack. It's like striking cold iron with a scorching hammer. The overarching objective in all this is to safeguard momentum, that potent blend of morale and material strength that propels an army forward. Such momentum can only be cultivated through a meticulous grasp of tactical positioning, knowing precisely when to coil back like a viper and when to surge forth like an unstoppable torrent. At its core, tactical positioning is the intricate science of balance between strength and emptiness. Where an adversary reveals a void, there you must position yourself to fill it with your force. And wherever their strength is concentrated, there you must position yourself to effortlessly circumvent it. He who masters this art truly earns the title of a commander who guides destiny with his own hand, crafting victory with his mind long before his sword is ever drawn. Indeed, the wise continue to assert that the greatest conquests are those which conclude without the enemy ever truly comprehending how they were defeated, for the tactical placement was so exquisitely precise, it left them no avenue for resistance. This, then, is the ultimate secret, the profound core of both defensive and offensive arts, revealed only to those of true insight.
The sage, in his profound discourse on the deployment of armies and the intricate affairs of combat, once observed, "The governance of a vast multitude does not differ in its essence from the governance of a small contingent, for the entire endeavor hinges upon skillful division and the judicious distribution of ranks. To lead a formidable army, one that casts a shadow of dread across the vast plains, bears no fundamental distinction from commanding a small squad. This holds true provided the language of signals is perfected and the commands of trumpets and the movements of standards are precisely controlled. The true significance, then, lies not in overwhelming numbers. Rather, it is in the masterful fusion of these individual spirits into a single cohesive entity, one that responds to the commander's slightest gesture and moves as one with his will."
Understand this fundamental truth. What forges an army into an unyielding, unbreakable force, unwavering in the face of the enemy, is a unique blend of direct action and strategic maneuver. Direct action is precisely that, the brutal, face-to-face confrontation with the adversary. Maneuver, however, embodies those hidden arts, descending upon the battlefield from where the foe least expects them. It strikes like a devastating thunderclap that seems to precede the very flash of lightning, or a heavy hammer falling upon a fragile egg. From the wisdom of the ancients, it is often recounted that combat strategies are but two fundamental types, the direct and the indirect, yet their intricate combination unleashes an endless cascade of maneuvers and strategies.
Consider the colors. At their essence, they are but 5 fundamental hues, yet their intricate blending reveals an inexhaustible spectrum of shades and pigments to the human eye. Now, consider sounds. Fundamentally, they are merely 5 notes on the musical scale, yet their arrangement delights the ears with an unending repertoire of melodies. And the same holds true for tastes. No more than 5 fundamental tastes exist, yet their combination delights the palate with a boundless array of flavors. And in the arena of conflict, there exist but these 2 fundamental approaches, yet their intricate interplay unlocks an expansive realm of possibilities whose full extent lies beyond the grasp of the human mind.
These 2 approaches give birth to each other, much like the ripples that spread across still water when a stone is cast. You can no longer discern where one began or where the other truly ended. They are like the sun and moon in their eternal dance, and the 4 seasons in their relentless succession. They fade only to be reborn, vanish only to reappear once more. The truly exceptional leader is one who harnesses this inherent ebb and flow, transforming it into what we call momentum, or explosive energy. Momentum, then, is like a torrent of water cascading from a great height. Its power grows so immense that it dislodges massive boulders, sweeping them effortlessly along its path. Timing, by contrast, is the precise strike of a predatory hawk upon its prey. It calculates the distance with meticulous accuracy, selecting the very instant when its decisive blow becomes utterly inevitable. Thus, the truly perceptive warrior trains his energy to be like a bow drawn to its absolute limit, and his timing like the precise release of a trigger at the moment of ultimate decision.
It is said that chaos can be born from the heart of order, that cowardice may spring forth from the deepest courage, and that weakness itself can be forged from immense strength. And this is precisely because these states are not fixed. They transform with the shifting tide of strategy and intent. Therefore, should you wish to project an image of chaos to deceive your enemy, your internal system must be meticulously refined, operating with the utmost precision. And if you choose to feign cowardice to lure your adversary into a trap, then within your very core must reside a rare and unwavering courage. And should you aim to project an illusion of weakness, your true power must be like a towering, unyielding peak, deliberately veiled from all prying eyes. The true master of stratagem, then, is one who manipulates their adversary as a skilled player moves chess pieces, luring them with the very desires they covet, until they are ensnared in the trap. He presents a tempting, succulent bait, and the enemy, blinded by desire, pounces. But in that precise moment, the astute leader has already arrayed his forces, men ready to meet the unsuspecting foe with bared swords. A truly wise leader, therefore, does not seek victory solely in the raw strength of his individual forces, but rather he finds it in the profound impact of momentum. He does not burden his soldiers with tasks beyond their capacity. Instead, he meticulously selects the right individuals for the right role, then allows the irresistible force of momentum to carry the rest.
Consider the master of momentum. Their skill is akin to that of someone who rolls perfectly rounded stones from the summit of a towering mountain. A stone on level ground remains inert, a square-hewn block motionless, but a perfectly spherical rock poised on a steep incline will unleash an unstoppable surge of power. Such is the very essence of power in the lexicon of war. It is the capacity to propel an army forward with inherent self-sustaining momentum, much like a colossal boulder dislodged and hurled downwards by a raging torrent. When a commander attains this mastery, they gain the profound ability to manipulate the very perceptions of their adversary. They obscure their tracks until no trace remains visible, and they silence themselves until not even a whisper can be heard. In doing so, the very destiny of their foe is held firmly within their grasp. They strike precisely where the enemy is exposed and vulnerable, and they deftly evade where fortifications stand impregnable. For it is profoundly understood that true strength lies not in the brute force of hard colliding against hard, but rather in the astute redirection of energy towards the enemy's most critical vulnerabilities, their unseen gaps.
Observe closely how a mighty army can suffer a devastating defeat if it loses its momentum, and conversely, how a small, agile unit can overturn the scales of victory if its energy is directed through indirect methods. The profound secret, the very essence of strategy, lies in compelling your adversary to expend their efforts into a void, while you meticulously conserve your own momentum for the exact moment their vulnerability is revealed. This mastery is attained only by those who have deeply immersed themselves in the understanding of emptiness and fullness, and who grasp that war is an art of perpetual transformation. No plan remains static, just as water possesses no stable form. Rather, it conforms precisely to the shape of the vessel that contains it. It is the skillful orchestration of this energy, the sophisticated deployment of these indirect tactics, that elevates a commander to a paragon of strategic brilliance and an army into an indomitable force. Here, every soldier transforms into a vital component of a vast, sweeping tempest, where no single individual claims superiority over another, save by their unique contribution to this wisely measured, patient collective surge. For momentum is the very spirit of combat, and strategic maneuver its eloquent voice, proclaiming victory.
Once a commander has mastered the deployment of his forces and has firmly grasped the arts of maneuver and the indirect tactics previously discussed, he must then turn his gaze to the enemy's points of strength and weakness. He must do so with the keen insight of one who understands the ultimate consequences of every move. For the very essence of war hinges upon a curious paradox. It is said that whoever arrives first on the battlefield, securing their chosen ground before their adversary, will be well rested, brimming with vitality, and poised for the decisive strike. Conversely, the one who delays, forced to rush to catch up with the unfolding conflict, will arrive utterly spent, a withered husk, breathless,
and with their resolve utterly sapped. Therefore, heed the wisdom of the sagacious. The truly skillful warrior is one who imposes their will upon the enemy, compelling them to move where they desire, and never allowing themselves to be drawn to where the adversary dictates.
The true path to ensnaring an adversary lies in one of two strategies. Either present them with an irresistible lure, a prize so tempting it makes their mouth water, drawing them in willingly to seize it, or inflict upon them an unavoidable harm, an inescapable torment, compelling them to rush towards you to avert it. If your foe is at ease, you must disturb their peace. If they are sated, you must starve them. And if they find sanctuary and safety, you must propel them towards their ruin. Indeed, a core tenet in this strategic philosophy dictates that striking from quarters utterly unexpected by the adversary and advancing with lightning speed towards the very heart of their complacency is the epitome of wisdom. For victory is truly secured only when you strike where no defense stands, and an impregnable defense is forged by safeguarding that which cannot be assailed.
Behold, a leader whose face remains unseen, whose presence is a phantom. In attack, he is a ghost, leaving the enemy bewildered, unsure where to mount their defense. In defense, he is an enigma, cloaked in shadow, leaving adversaries blind to the vulnerable points of their own stronghold. This commander has ascended to a near-divine status in his strategic foresight, becoming utterly unseen. He has achieved a celestial stillness, rendering him entirely unheard. Thus, he holds the very destiny of his enemies within his grasp, between his fingertips. When he advances, the enemy cannot hope to repel him, for his assaults strike at the very heart of their weaknesses. When he withdraws, no adversary can pursue, for his movements are swifter than the unleashed wind. Should we desire engagement, the enemy is compelled to meet us, even if they are entrenched behind the deepest moats or the most towering walls. This is achieved by striking at a point they are forced to defend, no matter the cost. And should we wish to avoid battle, the enemy is forced to retreat, even if they have meticulously entrenched their position. We achieve this by cloaking our intentions in such layers of obfuscation and sowing such profound seeds of deception in their minds that they inevitably lose their way.
It has long been said that the true secret to victory lies in knowing the enemy's every move while keeping our own positions shrouded in secrecy. For if the enemy is scattered, yet we remain a unified force, we effectively become 10 against 1. This allows us to strike with overwhelming numbers against their dispersed few. Imagine the adversary's dilemma, struggling to pinpoint where our decisive blow will land. Ignorant of our chosen target, they are compelled to prepare for an attack from every conceivable direction. And as their defensive fronts multiply, the strength of their forces in any single position inevitably dwindles. If they fortify their front, their rear becomes vulnerable. If they secure their right flank, their left is laid bare. And if they attempt to protect every single point, they become weak everywhere. Understand this. True weakness isn't merely a matter of fewer numbers. It lies in the desperate compulsion to constantly brace for an attack. And true strength is not found in sheer multitude, but in the strategic genius of forcing your adversary into that very state of perpetual anxious readiness.
From the ancient masters of war, a crucial wisdom is passed down. If you know the precise time and place of battle, you can rally your forces, even if separated by 1,000 leagues. But if you remain oblivious to both time and location, your left flank will be unable to aid your right, your rear unable to reinforce your vanguard. How much more devastating, then, for those whose divisions are vast and whose intentions are scattered? Should I survey the enemy's army and find it superior in numbers, I would declare, what good is such a multitude if they do not seize the initiative? Therefore, I assert, victory is not found but forged. Even if the enemy boasts greater numbers, It is within our power to prevent their fight by scattering their thoughts and fragmenting their unity. Therefore, probe the depths of your adversary to uncover his plans and hidden objectives. Provoke him to discern the secret behind his stillness or his sudden movements. Force him into the open to expose his fatal vulnerabilities. Scrutinize his army against your own with utmost precision to truly understand where power overflows and where courage dwindles.
The ultimate mastery a warrior can attain in organizing his army is the state of formlessness. Once you achieve this level, no lurking spy will find a weakness to exploit, nor will the most astute strategist be able to devise a plan to counter you. It is from this very formlessness that we derive the actions leading to victory, actions that unfold before everyone's eyes, yet no one can truly comprehend how they came to be. People witness the triumph itself, but they fail to perceive the intricate path from which that victory was woven. Therefore, never repeat a strategy that has once brought success. Instead, let your methods transform endlessly, just as the forms of clouds constantly shift and change.
The movement of an army, in its very essence, mirrors that of water. For water, by its nature, shuns the heights and rushes towards the lowlands. So too must an army avoid the enemy's strongholds, choosing instead to strike at its points of weakness. Water carves its path, ever adapting to the earth's contours. The warrior achieves victory by responding to the movements of his adversary. Just as water possesses no fixed form, so too in war are there no stable, unchanging conditions. Therefore, he who can alter his strategies in accordance with the enemy's shifting tides, he is the one destined to be called victor by the grace of heaven. Consider the 5 elements of nature. None perpetually overcomes the other. The 4 seasons succeed each other, their conditions never enduring. Days lengthen and shorten. The moon waxes to fullness, then wanes. And so it is with positions of strength and weakness in combat, a constant ebb and flow among humankind. He who masters this delicate balance seizes the ultimate advantage, becoming like the seasoned fisherman who knows precisely when to cast his nets wide and when to draw them in. Thus, no prize escapes his grasp, while his adversary remains lost in confusion, stumbling blindly like one lost in the deepest night.
Once the principles of strength and adaptability were established, and the discerning eye could clearly perceive the points of weakness and the wellsprings of resilience within the advancing ranks, it became imperative for those who held the reins of armies to understand that war is not a singular, unyielding path. Rather, it is a constant flux of conditions, like the shifting winds on a stormy day. It is said that the wise Sun Tzu stated, "When a commander receives the royal mandates, assembles the dispersed troops, and mobilizes the legions, he must meticulously consider the fluctuations of the terrain and the shifts in time, lest he encamp in a location that leads to peril, or linger in a barren land devoid of vegetation and water."
Consider this truth. It is a mark of the most profound strategic foresight and wise governance for one to avoid well-trodden paths, even if they appear direct and expedient, for often an easy road leads to utter ruin. Many a formidable army remains unassailed due to its impenetrable strength. Many a fortified city is never besieged, not for its walls, but for the immense hardship it promises. And many a strategic position is left unchallenged, its narrow approaches making combat impractical. Indeed, those of true insight recount that even the king's own commands, though issued from the throne of glory and power, may be set aside by a seasoned commander if he foresees the annihilation of his troops or the forfeiture of victory. For the battlefield sees the truth more clearly than the grandest palace.
The leader who truly grasps how to navigate the 9 strategic variations, who discerns precisely when to advance and when to hold back, that is the one who has reached the zenith of combat artistry. But the one who rigidly adheres to the letter of the law, unable to adapt their strategy to the shifting contours of the land, even with a theoretical understanding of the terrain, will never extract true advantage from it. True mastery, however, lies in a leader guiding their forces as water carves its own path. yielding to the bends, yet surging powerfully into every opening and crevice. Among the profound insights of the wise on this subject is the understanding that a truly sagacious individual must weigh both benefit and detriment in their calculations. For if he contemplates potential gain while facing adversity, the horizons of hope will expand before him, fortifying his resolve to reach his ultimate objective. Conversely, if he examines potential harm during times of prosperity, he will be prepared for tribulation before it strikes, thus safeguarding against the perils of betrayal. Thus, focusing on benefit ensures the efficacy of the plan, while acknowledging detriment secures its outcome.
To truly subdue your adversaries and break their will, you must engage them in pursuits that harm them, drive them towards exhaustion, and lure them with phantom ambitions they relentlessly chase until their strength is utterly spent. When you witness their weariness reaching its zenith, their resolve fractured by the twin forces of greed and fear, then, and only then, will you achieve your objective, resting in tranquil ease. Furthermore, understand that the tenets of warfare dictate against relying on the enemy's absence. Instead, rely on your own unwavering readiness to meet them. Never assume they will not attack. Instead, fortify your forces to such an extent that the very thought of an assault becomes unthinkable to them. For ultimate prudence lies entirely in preparedness, and utter failure in relying on favorable assumptions about your adversary.
For those entrusted with the command of armies, 5 perils lie in wait, 5 qualities that are in themselves the very road to ruin. First, there is recklessness and advancement without true insight. For hollow courage, though it may seem brave, only leads its possessor into the jaws of death, making him an effortless target for cunning traps and enemy ploys. Second, the insidious grip of cowardice and an excessive love for one's own life. For he who fears death often finds himself consumed by it, and the one who clings too tightly to personal safety will ultimately be captured, humiliated, and in his downfall will doom his entire army. Third, the volatile temper and quickness to anger. An astute enemy knows how to exploit this flaw, provoking such a commander with mere trifles until he loses his composure, abandons sound judgment, and stumbles headfirst into the very snare laid for him. Fourth, an exaggerated sense of honor and an excessive preoccupation with personal dignity. An enemy keen to exploit this might cast aspersions or insults, forcing the commander into ill-advised actions, all in a desperate, misguided attempt to clear his name or defend his pride, leading to disastrous outcomes. And finally, fifth, an excess of mercy towards one's soldiers and an overwhelming fear for their safety. For a heart too tender, a commander too hesitant will falter in making the brutal, difficult decisions that victory often demands. In his misplaced compassion, all will ultimately perish.
These 5 qualities are the deadly venom coursing through the veins of leadership, the very scourges that crumble the foundations of colossal armies. Never has an army perished, nor a commander fallen outside of a decisive battle, without one of these very qualities being the hidden cause behind their undoing. Therefore, you must scrutinize them and cleanse your spirit of their taint, to become a commander who navigates his forces through advantage and peril with profound wisdom and meticulous strategy, knowing no path to defeat, no avenue to failure. Indeed, it is told that some Eastern commanders would never commence their campaigns until they had first examined their own souls for these very flaws. If a leader found within himself a predisposition to anger or cowardice, he would step down from command until his spirit was thoroughly disciplined. For war is not merely a clash of bodies, it is first and foremost a clash of intellects and a wrestling of wills. The true victor is he who masters his own passions before he masters his foe. And when you seek to move your legions, do not look solely at the multitude of men or the might of your cavalry.
Rather, consider the depth of your ability to adapt your maneuvers as the theaters of war demand. For that is the unwavering pillar, the firmest handhold for all who seek victory and aspire to triumph amidst the fields of death. From this, we learn that maneuver is far more than a mere shift from one place to another. It is, in its essence, the profound art of adapting to unfolding realities, of discovering an escape route amidst the most constricted circumstances. Be like the wind, ungraspable by any hand. Be like the shadow, clinging to its master wherever he treads. Let your strategy remain a profound secret, impenetrable to the enemy, until they find themselves encircled by the unforeseen. For this, truly, is the pinnacle of the art of war, the ultimate expression of military sagacity. They say that a truly sagacious commander, having meticulously marshaled his ranks and perfected his maneuvers, must then cast his gaze upon the ultimate fate of his endeavor when confronted by the harsh realities of the terrain and the shifting nature of the land. For an army on the march encounters conditions where success is unattainable without a profound understanding of the natural characteristics of its surroundings. The ancients taught us that any commander leading his troops into mountainous terrain must cleave to the valleys rich with pasture, establishing his encampment in elevated positions bathed in the full gaze of the sun. Under no circumstances should he ascend the peaks to engage an enemy holding the higher ground. This, they affirmed, is the wisdom of those who sought survival amidst the treacherous wilderness. Should the column arrive at a great river, wisdom dictates the army should move away from the water once the crossing is complete. Should the enemy then advance, attempting to traverse these waters, do not engage him while he is deep within its currents. Instead, grant him respite until his crossing is midway and his ranks are divided, for it is then, and only then, that you can strike a devastating blow. Furthermore, ancient wisdom recounts that any who seek to engage a foe near rivers must never stand directly against the current, nor should one ever encamp in a position downstream from the enemy. This is crucial, lest the water gain dominion and turn against him. Should destiny, however, guide the army into regions of swamps and salt flats, the cardinal rule is swift passage and an absolute caution against any delay. But if one is compelled to engage in battle within such treacherous terrain, his stand must be near areas of abundant vegetation and pasture, and behind him let there be sheltering trees, offering protection for his rear. But in the vast plains and open wildernesses, the strategy dictates that a commander secure an advantageous position where the right flank and rear are anchored by a rise or elevated ground, ensuring that peril lies before them and security at their backs. These four positions represent the core wisdom that served the Yellow Emperor in ages past, allowing him to conquer his four adversaries. It is said that an army favors elevated ground over low-lying areas, thriving in sunlight and shunning the shadows. Should a commander attend to the well-being of his troops and establish his camp on firm, clean ground, free from disease, this becomes a powerful guarantor of ultimate victory. If you encounter hills or mounds, always occupy their sun-drenched slopes and position the descent behind and to your right. This practice benefits the soldiers and harnesses the very aid of the land. And should you witness the heavens unleash a torrential downpour in the upper reaches of a river, then wait until the furious surge of foam subsides before daring to cross its waters.
Across the land, there exist places known as al-mahalik, the death traps, the perilous zones. These are regions encircled by towering mountains or resembling a constricted cauldron, a narrow snare, an impenetrable labyrinth of forests, or the hidden depths of gaping chasms. From such treacherous locales, swift escape is paramount. To linger or approach is to invite disaster. The truly astute commander, however, ensures these mahalik lie behind his enemy, never behind himself. He forces his adversary to contend with their suffocating confines, while he himself enjoys the expansive freedom of open ground. Indeed, the ancient strategists and scholars of war once decreed, should your encampment be bordered by dense, tangled thickets, or obscured by deep, murky pools,
or surrounded by meadows choked with tall grasses, it is imperative that you scrutinize them with utmost diligence, for these are the natural havens for spies and the treacherous. If the enemy appears close, yet remains eerily quiet and still, understand this: they are relying on the perceived impregnability of their chosen position. Should they, however, begin to provoke, to goad you into battle, then know they seek to draw you into terrain of their own choosing. And if their position seems deceptively easy to access, it is almost certainly a lure, concealing a deeper, more dangerous ambition.
Heed, then, the silent wisdom of the natural world, and may divine providence guide you, as it often speaks of impending war before any trumpet sounds. If you see the trees tremble, yet no fierce wind stirs them, know that the enemy advances. Should birds take sudden flight, scattering in frantic swarms, it signals a hidden ambush already laid. And when wild beasts abandon their lairs in terror, the foe is poised for utter devastation. Should a towering column of dust ascend to the heavens, know that chariots are approaching. But if the dust spreads low and wide, it signals the advance of infantry legions. If the dust appears scattered in disparate directions, they are merely gathering firewood. And if only a light dust rises and falls, moving sporadically, it indicates scouts encamping for a respite. It is also said in ancient lore, if the enemy's envoys speak with humility and meekness, even as their armies grow in readiness, it is a cunning deception, a prelude to assault. But if their words are filled with harshness and threats, it is a sure sign of their impending flight and defeat. If light chariots emerge first, taking positions on the flanks, the enemy prepares for a decisive confrontation. Should they approach seeking peace without any prior pact, beware, it is a treachery conceived in the shadows of night. If you witness enemy soldiers rushing to form their battalions, they await the decisive hour of reckoning. And should you observe some advance while others retreat, it is a cunning stratagem designed solely to lure you into a trap.
When you see soldiers leaning on their spears, not in rest but from sheer exhaustion and frailty, know this: they are starving. If the water-bearers themselves, the very providers of life, begin to drink before anyone else, it is a stark sign that thirst has reached its breaking point within their ranks. Should you witness the enemy turn away from obvious spoils, their hands refusing to reach out for the plunder, understand that their weariness is profound, their strength insufficient to bear any further burden. When sparrows begin to gather undisturbed above an enemy position, it is a silent declaration: the site is deserted, abandoned. And if cries pierce the silence of the night, know that terror and gnawing anxiety have taken root deep within their hearts. Should turmoil erupt within the camp, it signals a weakening of the commander's authority. When banners flutter without purpose or direction, chaos has firmly pitched its tents. If officers grow angry and their complaints echo through the ranks, it means weariness has finally overtaken them. And among the most remarkable tales told is this: if you observe the enemy feeding their horses precious wheat, slaughtering their own livestock merely for sustenance, smashing their cooking vessels, and refusing to return to the safety of their tents, then know with certainty that they have committed themselves fully to either victory or death, with no thought of retreat. When men gather in hushed small groups, their voices barely audible, it is a clear sign that trust has eroded between the governed and their leader, between the flock and its shepherd. If rewards become abundant within the army, it speaks of a commander in distress, desperately seeking to win hearts and loyalty. And conversely, if punishments proliferate, then the people are gripped by hardship and calamity. The ancients, in their wisdom, observed a profound truth: a leader who begins with cruelty only to later fear his own troops has truly plumbed the depths of disastrous command. When envoys arrive bearing gifts and lavish praise, understand this: they seek a truce, a moment of respite. Should an enemy strike with fury, then linger before you for an extended period, neither fighting nor retreating, extreme caution is paramount. You must scrutinize their true intentions. Victory is not simply a matter of numbers. It lies in curbing recklessness, consolidating power, and acutely discerning the adversary's state.
He who underestimates his foe, failing to engage his intellect, is destined for capture. If soldiers are disciplined before they have formed a bond with their commander, they will not obey, and without obedience, their strength is rendered useless. Conversely, if a commander wins their hearts but fails to instill discipline and firmness, his troops become like orphans, valueless in the crucible of conflict. Thus, soldiers must be led with affection and kindness, yet also restrained by clear laws and unwavering strictness. This, and only this, is the path to certain victory. When commands are rigorous and obeyed in times of peace, an army will prove pliant and disciplined in the chaos of war. And if a commander trusts his men, treating them with justice while demanding strict adherence, then success shall be his steadfast ally in every land he treads. This, then, is the distilled wisdom concerning the shifting fortunes of nations and the art of leading men. Let all who listen and bear witness truly comprehend.
Know this fundamental truth: the intricate art of war is inextricably linked to a profound understanding of the land's geography and the ever-changing nature of its battlegrounds. Indeed, the ancient strategists, in their wisdom, classified the various battlegrounds into 9 distinct types. Each, they understood, possessed its own character, its own challenges, and demanded a specific military policy without which an army could not hope to succeed. The first of these is known as dispersing ground. This refers to the territory where an army finds itself fighting within the very borders of its own nation. Should battle erupt on such ground, the soldiers' hearts inevitably turn to their homes, their spirits yearning for the comfort of their families. Unity falters, and their resolve weakens. The wise commander, therefore, refrains from engaging in a decisive battle here. Instead, their focus must be on uniting hearts and reconciling differing aspirations. Next comes light ground. This is territory an army enters from enemy lands, but without penetrating deeply. Here, every step is hesitant, burdened by the urge to retreat. It is a perilous position, where the risk of collapse is ever present. The counsel, then, is for the army to advance with extreme caution, never allowing its momentum to cease. Then there is contested ground. This is a critical area, for whoever seizes it holds the reins of victory, while those who lose it find themselves in dire straits. If the enemy has already secured this ground, do not rush to assault it. Instead, observe and wait patiently for them to grow complacent.
From the annals of ancient wisdom, it is recounted that the open land is where paths are equally accessible to both you and your adversary. In such a place, never block a route of passage, but rather remain acutely vigilant to every single movement. Should the situation shift to the land of confluence, a territory encompassed by diverse kingdoms, then he who arrives first holds the prerogative to forge alliances with its neighbors. Here, your imperative is to dispatch envoys, secure treaties, and solidify relationships to safeguard against the specter of treachery. But when an army advances deep into enemy territory, leaving behind impregnable fortresses and numerous cities, that is known as the heavy land. At this juncture, plunder becomes a grim necessity to secure provisions, for sustenance is the very lifeblood of survival deep within the adversary's heartland. Finally, should an army find itself in the rugged land, where dense forests entwine, treacherous swamps lie hidden, and towering mountains loom, the only viable strategy is to press onward without hesitation, for to halt in such terrain is to invite certain annihilation.
Among the most perilous terrains is what is known as the constricted land. It is a place entered only through a narrow pass and exited through but a single outlet. Here, a small number of adversaries can overwhelm a vast army. The strategy, then, is to employ cunning and deception to mislead the enemy about your true intentions. As for the land of death, it is a position where salvation lies only in the thrust and the blow. There is no escape for the one who flees. If the soldier does not fight with every ounce of his strength, the swords will surely consume him. In this place, all hope for life is abandoned, and from within their chests the courage of desperation ignites, a courage sharper than any inherited bravery. It is said that the seasoned commander knows how to drive his soldiers, just as a shepherd guides his flock.
placing them in the land of death so that they may live, and in the land of dispersion so that they may unite. And among the most astonishing observations is that when an army is cast into the perilous depths of the land, the hearts of its men become as one. For fear unites even enemies. What then of comrades?
The very essence of a leader's strategy demands he be silent as the deepest night, enigmatic as the swirling mist. His secrets remain impenetrable, his true intentions forever veiled. He must shift his plans with the swiftness of a chameleon changing its hues, and reposition his encampment lest the enemy ever discern the true wellsprings of his strength. Among the most brilliant stratagems is to compel his soldiers towards an objective whose ultimate outcome they cannot foresee, much like the blind are guided to an unknown destination. Then, when the decisive moment arrives, they find themselves confronted with but a single choice, either glorious, resounding victory or an inescapable, bitter death. For it has been wisely said, "Haste in war is commendable, provided it is guided by foresight." Thus, to preemptively seize what the enemy holds dear and values above all else renders him a captive to your slightest command and compels him to march to the beat of your drum. Understand this: the speed of the wind is the very essence of war. To materialize in places the adversary least anticipates, to traverse routes previously untouched, this is the path to shattering his spirit, long before a single rank is broken. A truly great leader does not perceive the land as mere dust and stones, but rather as a living entity, whispering its secrets. Should he find himself in a land of disarray, he keeps his soldiers engaged, lest idleness consume them. If in a land of vulnerability, he ensures the ranks are solidified, preventing weakness from seeping in. And in a land of contention, he moves swiftly to fortify his rear. When traversing open territory, he surveys his defenses with an unblinking eye. And it is the height of wisdom to understand that soldiers are like water, they conform to the shape of their vessel. Should you constrict their paths in a land of certain death, they will erupt like a raging torrent.
For any who aspire to victory, it becomes essential to study the very nature of humanity with the same meticulousness one would map the Earth's terrain. For victory is not merely a matter of overwhelming numbers, nor the singular might of a sharpened blade. Instead, it is forged through the astute management of these 9 crucial junctures: the profound ability to transmute adversity into advantage, to forge courage from the crucible of fear, and to unify fragmentation into an unbreakable bond, a solidarity so robust that neither the relentless currents of time nor the cunning machinations of adversaries can unravel its ties. These are the battlefield realities that only the arrogant would dare overlook, and from whose repercussions only the truly perceptive can emerge unscathed. They represent the unerring scales of war, the unwavering beacon guiding those who walk the arduous paths of glory and ultimate triumph. Grasp these fundamental tenets, engrave them upon your mind, and you will find every formidable challenge bending to your will, the vast expanse of the world itself compliant to your very command.
Having concluded our exploration of the 9 strategic positions and the shifting temperaments of the human heart within them, and the intricate art of commanding troops when facing adversaries, whether in the tight confines of a narrow pass or the sweeping expanse of open ground, now understand this profound truth, that in the crucible of combat, fire wields a devastating power, an overwhelming dominion, and an awe-inspiring, often terrifying impact. It is, some believe, a force ordained, unleashed by a higher power upon those who falter in their vigilance, those who neglect the sudden, unexpected calls for caution. Ancient strategists posited that the means by which an adversary could be crippled by fire were precisely 5, no 6th. Firstly, the immolation of men within their tents and their hidden strongholds. Secondly, the destruction by fire of their vital provisions and supplies, upon which their very existence depends. Thirdly, the burning of their baggage trains and the heavy burdens of their march. Fourthly, the incineration of their armories and the formidable engines of siege warfare. And finally, fifthly, to rain down fire upon the enemy from a distance, unleashing a torrent of flames designed to sow panic and chaos deep within their ranks.
To successfully achieve his aim of igniting fires, a commander must possess prepared provisions and readily available materials. For fire does not simply materialize from nothing. It demands substantial fuel, such as dense wood or highly flammable oils. Ancient sages, it is said, spoke of specific, opportune moments for setting fires, moments no shrewd mind would dare ignore. The fundamental conditions include arid weather and dry air. And crucially, the moon must reside within specific lunar mansions, celestial alignments believed to unleash the very gates of the winds, such as the constellations of Gemini or Alwaki, often associated with Lyra. For the surging wind is none other than the very wings of fire, carrying it swiftly to the enemy's strongholds.
Know, with the wisdom granted by Providence, that when fire erupts within the enemy's camp, it undergoes 5 distinct phases. Upon these transformations, a commander must meticulously build their strategy. Should the flames erupt within the enemy's fortifications, you must launch an immediate assault from outside before they can recover from the initial shock and disarray. However, if you observe the flames raging, yet the enemy remains calm and composed, untouched by panic, then restrain your assault and do not hasten, for this could signify a trap meticulously laid for you, or that the enemy is stoically enduring their plight, aiming to draw you deeper into their snare. When the inferno reaches its zenith, towering like colossal mountains, assess if a breach is possible. If an opportunity arises, seize it. Otherwise, maintain your position and observe until the fiery surge finally subsides.
In the ancient art of fire warfare, a crucial principle emerges. If you possess the means to ignite a blaze from beyond enemy lines, do not hesitate, waiting for an internal spark. Instead, act decisively, at the precise moment when the wind becomes your ally. But beware, exercise the utmost caution. Never launch an assault from the windward side if a wall of fire separates you from your adversary. To attack against the wind's flow is akin to spitting into the sun's fiery gaze. The flames will inevitably turn back upon you, and the billowing smoke will choke and blind your soldiers, rendering them helpless. The wisdom gleaned from studying nature's rhythms reveals another profound insight. Winds that sweep across the land by day often persist, holding their course for extended periods. Yet, the night wind is a fickle, treacherous ally, prone to vanishing as swiftly as it appeared. Therefore, never stake your entire strategy on the caprice of a nocturnal breeze, for it may abandon you, leaving your meticulously kindled flames to die, smoldering and helpless, halfway through their destructive journey.
A commander who harnesses fire to bolster his assault, he is hailed for his intellect, his keen strategic mind. And the one who wields water, isolating his foe, he is celebrated for his sheer power. Yet the distinction between these two approaches is stark. Water can sever supply lines, block pathways, isolating an opponent completely. But unlike fire, it does not consume ammunition. It does not obliterate equipment. Nevertheless, the most profound loss of all is to emerge victorious from battle, to conquer cities with the sword, only to fail to harvest the true fruits of that triumph. This, my friends, is what we call ignominious waste, a shameful squandering of hard-won success. And such a fate befalls only those who fail to employ their intellect in planning for the aftermath, for what comes after the fire has faded.
Seasoned strategists have long advised, do not make a move unless a clear advantage presents itself. Do not strike the flint of war unless it promises the betterment of your situation, and do not engage in combat until the floodwaters have breached the highest banks and you are gripped by imminent, inescapable danger. A ruler, then, must never mobilize armies simply out of a sudden surge of anger. A commander must not plunge into the crucible of conflict to satisfy a personal vendetta, for anger, however fierce, may eventually give way to satisfaction, and displeasure can transform into joy. But a state, once it crumbles, does not return, and the dead do not rise from their graves. Therefore, the truly insightful ruler is one who embodies caution. The far-sighted commander is one who avoids impulsiveness. This is the only way to safeguard the land and keep the army poised in a state of lasting security.
It is a truth as old as time that fire, though an obedient servant, is a tyrannical master. Therefore, should you unleash its tether, be master of your own fate, keenly aware of the shifting winds and the treacherous traps of the earth. For warfare waged with fire is not merely about the annihilation of human lives. It is designed to shatter the spirits of men long before their bodies succumb. When a soldier witnesses its flames devouring his vital rations, its inferno licking at his garments, and its smoke choking his very breath, his will crumbles, and he casts aside his weapon. Herein lies the true strategic brilliance of a commander, to transform fire into a terrifying voice, whispering defeat into the ears of his adversaries long before swords ever touch their throats.
Understand this, seeker of wisdom. Fire possesses a nature, much like humanity itself. Some fires are quiet, spreading unseen, patiently taking root until they seize control, while others are tempestuous, erupting in a sudden furious blaze, only to quickly die down. The truly wise leader is one who understands which fire to ignite and precisely where to place it. For the burning of provisions in storehouses breeds hunger. The destruction of materiel leads to incapacitation, but fire ignited in the hearts of men brings surrender. He who masters all these arts has secured the means of victory from every quarter. He becomes as if he holds destiny itself in his right hand. No command of his shall be denied, and no enemy on land or sea shall stand against him. And when this is accomplished, when you witness your flames rise high and the cries of your enemy pierce the very air, do not be deceived by a swift victory. Instead, keep your eyes fixed on the land's potential escape routes, for the blaze might be merely a cover for a calculated retreat or an ambush awaiting you behind the shrouds of smoke. Indeed, to wage war with fire is the art of the powerful, those who do not dread nature's raw power, but rather bend it to their will, making it an interpreter of their intentions on the fields of war. Thus concludes our exploration, within this chapter, of the strategies of immolation and destruction. And God is the granter of success in what is right, and He is the guide to the straight path. When the fires of the battlefields are extinguished and the clamor of overt conflict subsides, an unseen realm of insight persists. This domain is only grasped through the meticulous analysis of intelligence, delving into the most minute details of information. For whoever seeks victory through mere planning, without diligent investigation and probing, is akin to one attempting to grasp the wind with an open palm. Indeed, consider this truth. The raising of armies, the marching of thousands, the expenditure of vast munitions, and the burdening of a populace with heavy taxes to secure provisions and supplies, all of it drains the public coffers and saps the strength of men. A single monarch might spend 100,000 gold pieces every day, all to secure a victory that lasts but an hour. Yet if this very monarch then begrudges a generous allocation to his intelligence networks, to his eyes and his spies, that would be the pinnacle of folly, the ultimate ruin. For how can one consider a small expenditure too costly when it could safeguard vast amounts of blood and treasure? It is asserted that a wise leader and a victorious sovereign are those who outmaneuver their adversary with knowledge inaccessible to the common populace. This knowledge is not conjured from the heavens through incantations, nor divined from the sands through mystic rites, nor deciphered from the movements of stars and celestial spheres. Instead, it is the product of human intellect, penetrating the enemy's innermost secrets, discerning their hidden intentions, and thus bringing forth irrefutable intelligence that banishes all doubt and mere speculation. In this vein, it is recounted that the intelligence operatives, or eyes, crucial for defeating the enemy, are categorized into 5 distinct types. Each type holds a unique position within the grand strategy and exerts a specific influence on the ultimate outcome. The first category comprises the local eyes. These are the inhabitants of the territory occupied by the enemy, farmers, artisans, and villagers alike. They possess an unparalleled understanding of their land's hidden depths and the intricate paths of its valleys. From them, crucial intelligence on topography and concealed routes is gleaned.
And then we have the second category, the eyes from within. These are individuals drawn from the enemy's own entourage, or perhaps senior officials whose hearts have been consumed by resentment, or those swayed by the irresistible lure of greed, or even those who believe they have been unjustly punished. These are the potent venom flowing through the adversary's veins, for they are the ones who will relay to you their most confidential deliberations, expose the vulnerabilities in their decisions, and reveal everything that transpires behind their carefully drawn curtains. The third and final category are the turned eyes, or as they are often known, the double agents. These are the very spies your enemy dispatched to conspire against you. But you, with your keen perception, uncover their true allegiance. You treat them with such an exceptional kindness and offer them a bounty so generous that their loyalty to their original sender is utterly forgotten. They become your staunchest allies, not only relaying to you your enemy's every intention, but also feeding your adversary the very deceptions and falsehoods you wish them to believe. These turned eyes are without question the most invaluable asset, for they will not only guide you to identifying the first 2 categories of intelligence sources, but will also skillfully prepare the ground for their ultimate recruitment.
The fourth category are the doomed eyes. These are individuals you select to instill with false information, convincing them of non-existent plans. You then allow them to fall into the enemy's grasp. Believing they speak the truth, they relay the fabrications they carry. When the enemy builds his strategy upon their words, only to later discover the deception, he executes them. They are called doomed because their fate is inevitably death once they have fulfilled their role in misleading the adversary. The fifth category are the surviving eyes. These are men of profound shrewdness and cunning, swift in their movements, and enduring in the face of hardship. They infiltrate the enemy's ranks, observing its positions with their own eyes. They then return to you safely to deliver an eyewitness account of all they have seen and heard. Understand that the collective orchestration of these 5 types of eyes forms what is known as the divine network. It is the greatest treasure a ruler can possess, for no human can ever penetrate this network once its threads are expertly woven and secured.
It is from this critical understanding that a leader must forge the closest possible bond with their intelligence network. No barrier, no veil can exist between them, nor should the highest rewards be withheld from them, for in the clandestine world, their rank and influence often surpass that of public leaders. Yet not every leader is suited to command such a sensitive network. Only those endowed with innate wisdom, a pure spirit, unwavering justice, and an insight that pierces through to the very core of men can truly lead them. For if a leader lacks wisdom, they will not know how to effectively deploy their assets. If justice is absent, trust will vanish. And without a gentle, discerning approach, extracting honest counsel will be impossible. This endeavor is exceedingly delicate. Utmost caution is not merely advisable, but mandatory. For a single piece of intelligence leaked prematurely, or any act of betrayal from within these ranks, spells nothing less than the utter annihilation of the entire army.
As certain sages once observed, should your ambition be to conquer a land, breach a formidable fortress, or even assassinate an adversary, then you must first and foremost know the names of the opposing commanders. You must also know the names of their chamberlains, their personal attendants, their gatekeepers, and their most trusted confidants. You must discern whose counsel the monarch truly heeds, who possesses the keys to the royal coffers, and who commands the night watch. Such intricate details are not found for sale in the bustling markets. Instead, they are acquired through shrewdness and the generous expenditure of coin upon discerning eyes. And among the most astute strategies for deploying your own intelligence network is to seek out the enemy's spies themselves. Thus, should you apprehend an enemy operative, do not hasten to strike off his head. Instead, feed him the sweetest honey, clothe him in the finest silk, and shower upon him such wealth as to astonish his very senses, until he turns into your own loyal eye against the very one who dispatched him.
With this turned eye, the double agent, you gain access to local intelligence networks and internal assets, for he knows their routes, their routines, and their hidden havens. Through him, you learn precisely when to dispatch the doomed eye, the sacrificial agent, to sow seeds of deception in your adversary's mind. And under his guidance, you chart the path for the surviving eye, ensuring its return with undeniable truth. The ultimate objective of all forms of espionage is to gather intelligence that allows you to act unseen by the enemy and to strike where they least expect it. As it's often said, war is deception, and no deception is more potent than appearing to possess foresight, enabling you to remain one step ahead of your adversary in every arena. Whoever neglects this crucial aspect dooms themselves to the perils of strategic blindness. But he who masters it becomes like the falcon, spotting its prey from the vast heavens while it remains utterly unaware.
Indeed, history recounts that among the greatest monarchs, their chief of intelligence, or the master of couriers and eyes, was a figure no less significant than the Grand Vizier, perhaps even more favored, for the very survival of the realm hinged upon the veracity of the information he delivered. Ancient empires crumbled when intelligence about the enemy ceased to reach the Sultan's court, or when the monarch was misled by fabricated reports delivered by a traitor swayed by the enemy's gold. A spy, then, is not merely a conveyor of words. Rather, he is the very mind of the commander, extending beyond his physical form, his eye piercing through mountains, his ear catching the faintest whisper from behind locked doors.
In the crucible of war, victory is not forged by the sheer weight of numbers. Rather, it is the power of intelligence, the informational lifeline that transforms the few into many and the weak into the strong. For the warrior who carries a sword but lacks the vital intel is like a blind man stumbling through the darkest night. He might inadvertently turn his blade upon himself or plummet into a pit carefully laid by his enemy. Recognize then the profound magnitude of this art. Never underestimate the impact of a single individual venturing into the heart of the enemy. For with one well-placed word, he can dismantle what no catapult could ever hope to destroy. He can cripple the resolve of a colossal army merely by planting a timely rumor. Such then are the timeless rules of war, a searing fire that consumes the visible, and piercing eyes that unveil the unseen. In the delicate balance between these two, nations are forged and empires rise and fall.